What's going on, YouTube? We're back with another in-depth video finally, some in-depth steel testing. And this one's going to be on a steel that was never really on my radar, other than when it first came out as being a somewhat new steel. I just thought it was kind of interesting to look at. Never really thought I was going to buy one or have a chance to test one. But we have some SPY27 here today. I tested this stuff for a month and a half or so and got some good use on it. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys my thoughts on it and whether or not I think it's a good steel. So if you guys weren't aware, early in 2020, Spyderco announced Crucible was producing SPY27 for them. So it's just going to be a steel exclusive to Spyderco, and it's just in a few models from them. We got the Native 5 lightweight here. They're doing a Para 3 lightweight in it and a Manix 2 lightweight. I'm not sure if they're going to expand that. It'd be kind of nice to see if they expand those models a little bit. But as they come in right now, those are the only models that currently have it, although they have some pretty good bases covered there, having all three models in it. Those are some good models to put in some good use with and really get a good feel for the steel. And with them being lightweight models, it's going to keep the cost down a little bit and make it a little bit cheaper to get it into your guys' hands. So on paper, SPY27 looks pretty similar to S30V or S35VN with some small tweaks. It's got 1.25% carbon, 14% chromium, 1% niobium, 2% molybdenum, 2% vanadium, 0.1% nitrogen, and 1.5% cobalt. Cobalt's kind of the interesting part out of all of that. Cobalt can actually help increase hardness a little bit. It's kind of cool that cobalt actually plays a part in the naming of this steel as well, as 27, the 27 in SPY27 is the atomic number of cobalt. So let's go ahead and talk about the steel itself and how I thought it did over my use. We're going to start off with corrosion resistance. This is a stainless steel with that 14% chromium. Never really noticed any issues with any corrosion on it. I really don't notice a whole lot of issues in my tool steels either, so take that as you may. If you're someone who has issues with S30V and S35VN rusting on you, it might happen on this, it might not, I'm not sure. Let's talk about sharpening a little bit. I've sharpened this particular knife 4 or 5 times in the time that I've had it. And I've played around with different edge finishes using standard electroplated diamond stones as well as bonded diamond stones. The electroplated stones were DMT or the Wicked Edge standard diamond stones, and the bonded diamond stones were the Veneve OCB diamond water stones. So here's kind of what I learned when sharpening SPY27. It gets super sticky when you take it to higher grit finishes. I took this thing all the way up to a mirror polish at one point and was pretty impressed with how sticky the edge is. And it also stays super aggressive when you leave it at lower grits. I enjoyed sharpening the steel. It's a fun steel to sharpen. It moves around pretty easily, and you can kind of finish it however you want it, however you prefer your edge. Some steels kind of like to be finished a certain way just to get good performance out of them, but SPY27 seems like one that you can, finish however you like, and you're still going to get good performance out of it. Personally, I preferred the 400 grit Veneve OCB edge, followed by stropping on 16 micron CBN on leather. It had a bit of toothiness left to it, but it was still refined enough for all of my daily use. That 400 grit Veneve OCB is more comparable to like a 600 grit DMT. The sharpness on the higher grit edges was great for cardboard and softer materials, but it kind of lacks some bite when you're cutting into something harder like a pallet strap or a zip tie, something like that. It just kind of wanted to slip off of it instead of actually truly bite into it. Alright, so let's talk about the use that I put on this knife while I've had it. The first edge I put on it was the 800 grit Veneve OCB, followed by 4, 1, and 0.1 micron CBN on leather. That brings it up to almost a perfect mirror polish. I could have taken it one step further on the Veneve OCBs, but I don't really use the 1200 grit stone from them a whole lot. So on that first edge, it cut 10 small boxes, 5 medium boxes, 3 large boxes, 2 pallet straps, 36 feet of cardboard. At that point, the edge was worn. There were some hang-ups in paper, and I think what happened was I cut a pretty darn dirty cardboard box with it, and I think that kind of just trashed the edge. Like, it was just toast after that. I stropped it on some 16 micron CBN on leather to try and bring the edge back, and it did bring it back a little bit, just back here at like the very tip section, but the rest of it was still trashed, and it definitely needed a fresh sharpening. The second edge I put on it was the 400 grit Venevo CB, followed by the 16 micron CBN on leather. That was the one that I ended up preferring, and that's what this knife is actually wearing right now before it's getting sent back to its owner. You guys can see, I mean, it's still somewhat shiny there. It's still got a lot of aggression in the edge, and is refined enough for anything else that I could possibly use it for. So on that edge, it cut 5 knife boxes, 33 small boxes, 15 medium boxes, 4 large boxes, 10 cuts into a phone charger cord, 2 clamshell packs, 6 zip ties, 3 pallet straps, and 64 feet of cardboard. That's a pretty solid amount of use, and that use spanned almost 2 weeks at my work, and I would not be upset with that performance out of my everyday carry. Very, very acceptable. Probably pretty comparable to like what S30V would do for me at my job, or maybe a little bit better. Those were the 2 edges that I tracked. I did play with it a little bit more, but never tracked the actual use on it. But saying that, let's go ahead and get into edge retention. I did my standard edge retention test on this guy. That is sharpening it to 18 degrees per side. That's what every edge was on this prior to the test, by the way. Sharpen it to 18 degrees per side on the wicked edge, 200 to 1000 grit diamond, and then stropped on 16 and 4 micron CBN on leather. Then I go ahead and cut cardboard until it's no longer cutting computer paper reliably. And with that test, I got 236.5 feet of cardboard, which is pretty darn solid. It's pretty similar to like what a good S30V or S35VN would do. Probably a little bit closer to what S30V rather than S35VN. S35VN is normally a little bit less than 200 feet, and S30V, when you get some good S30V, is a little bit over 200 feet. So pretty comparable there. It sharpens up pretty similar, breaks down pretty similar. Honestly, if they weren't marked, it'd be hard to tell the difference between them. But all in all, a pretty good test result for this. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some toughness here. Honestly, I don't really test my knives hard enough in the real world to test their toughness, and this isn't my knife, so I wasn't going to really put it through the ringer testing toughness like I do on some of my other stuff. But what I did do is I put it through an impact toughness test on staples in cardboard. You guys might have seen this in the past in some of the other in-depth videos. There's staples inside of cardboard, like the big like packing staples. Basically, I get the knife started in the cardboard and then just slam into the staples as hard as I can. I did that twice on this edge, and it was a fresh edge when I did it, so obviously there's no fatigue steel or anything that could possibly make it break down or possibly make it have worse damage than what it would be with a fresh edge. And I'm going to throw the results up here on the screen right now. The damage was pretty minimal, some small chips, and it was a bit worse than how like what Crewware did. But that's kind of to be expected. Crewware is going to be a little bit tougher steel. And that Crewware knife was, if I'm remembering correctly, was 61. And I think the SPY27 stuff is right around there or coming in just a touch harder. We'll see. This is actually going to get sent out to be hardness tested. But if I were a betting man, I'd put this somewhere in the range of 61, 62. And the damage that it took was very, very minimal, and it came out in less than 5 minutes of sharpening. So, I mean, that's hitting a staple pretty darn hard. You'd have to be, flying through cardboard and not even aware that the staple was there to put that much damage into it. Pretty happy with that. If you guys watched the in-depth videos in the past, I did some edge stability testing on zip ties, kind of twisting cuts into zip ties. I've kind of decided to not do that anymore, just because I feel like any decent knife steel will do just fine on zip ties. Zip ties aren't really a tough test media to cut, so I'm no longer doing that. Edge stability on this guy was pretty solid. I didn't notice any rolling or chipping in my use. It just kind of breaks down and blunts over time, kind of like what a lot of the other higher end super steels do. So let's go ahead and get into the final thoughts here. Final thoughts on SPY27 is it's a great everyday user steel. If you're someone that uses your knife at work and you don't really know what kind of tasks you're going to be getting into and you want a stainless steel, this is a great option. It's stainless, so you don't have to worry about maintenance. It holds an edge for a respectable amount of time, sharpens and strops back very, very nicely, and is tough enough and has enough edge stability to take some light abuse. So definitely a steel I would recommend checking out if this sounds like a steel that you'd be interested in. I do want to say thank you to at Murky_Atlantic Ocean for sending this along for me to test. He's a huge supporter of the channel as well as the Sharp Talk podcast, so I definitely appreciate that. I know it's not always the easiest for guys to send knives out to me and then have them out of their hands for a month or 2 months, and I definitely appreciate that for giving me the opportunity to test knives like this. I have a few more of these in-depth videos backlogged and some other steels, so let me know if you guys want to see more of these by hitting the like button down below and subscribe if you haven't already. That's going to do it for me today, guys. As always, thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.